to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester podcast. We are a community built on love, hope, and justice. Our goal is to inspire people to take on the challenges of a changing world. Each week we'll bring you a reflection from our minister, the Reverend Aaron Payson, recorded during our Sunday service. Maybe it'll move you, challenge your thinking, or even stir up a little righteous indignation. That's all welcome here. Thanks for listening.
My hope is that you all had a wondrous Thanksgiving, or at least that you survived it, and that you have time for therapy if you need it. And if anyone from the Payson clan sidles up to you and says, "Do you know what Aaron did with the apple pie?" your response is yes, and move on. Well, no, to be clear, this was an act of mercy on my part. The pumpkin pie was going to mold very quickly, and I was not about to allow that to happen to the apple pie. And so I did the most merciful thing I could. And as for the whipped cream, I have no recollection whatsoever. So, yes, and I awoke from my sugar coma about 4:30 this morning. So it all worked out well. Oh, excellent. I'm redeemed because there's more in Fellowship Hall, which just makes me want to say we're done and go through there, you know. Amen. Amen. Wow. I kind of knew that was coming.
No, thank you.
Two streams of thought energized my reflection this morning. The first is a reclamation of the image of Mary, Mother of Jesus, whose personage and story are so often at the center of the Christian tradition's celebration during the season of Advent. Here, Reverend Nancy Rockwell, a United Church of Christ minister's musings are part of what inspire me this morning. The second are the musings of one of my favorite Catholic authors, Henri Nouwen, who has written quite eloquently about the spirituality of waiting, another theme central to the Advent season. I'm mindful that this reflection comes at a time when there has been much clamor to do something about all that has been happening in our country. The idea of waiting seems anathema to what we are energized by these days. There are those who have been waiting for this moment, however, with bated breath, for the militarization of federal law enforcement agencies that would brought to bear on those whose lives have been erroneously labeled illegal in our midst. Others who have responded to the current circumstances, waiting for those we have voted for to represent us in government to do something to shut down the very effort others hail. That we have been witness this week again to violence, one soldier dead, another in critical condition, as well as the perpetrator of such violence, suggests that the very effort we have tolerated to solve the problem of immigration is in fact the very cause of the problem we seek to solve. All the rhetoric and all of the armed action that continues to plague cities in our country that treat those who have arrived here in search of a better existence as others, whose lives are secondary, minimal, or of non-importance, except as a threat. And now giving the administration the twisted excuse to second-guess the validity of all of those who have been granted the right to be here in the first place. I'm reminded here of the prophetic rant recently given by Jon Stewart, who asked, "Why is it that when a foreigner kills one of us, We're going to put $150 billion into border security. We're going to militarize our cities. We're going to spend trillions of dollars to bomb and destabilize foreign countries overseas. We're going to ban people from random countries from ever visiting here, and I would add now scrutinize their lawful presence. But when we do it to ourselves, nothing. Is it that the only acceptable deaths are those that are made in America? The hypocrisy that is embedded in the xenophobic policies of a tyrannical administration and those who laud it is never more clear than in moments like this. A soldier is shot and dies and another is injured. This is immoral action and is clearly condemnable by people of conscience. The announcement of immediate actions to cease migration services and to revisit the legal status of those who have already migrated came within hours of this incident. All the while, in the past 25 years, over 200 children have lost their lives in more than 300 school shootings in the country, all of whom received earnest thoughts and prayers from politicians and pundits, many of whom are the ones now hailing the call to cease immigration and question the status of those who have immigrated here as the only sane response. And we still can't talk about sensible gun reform. This is ignorant, and it is immoral. Now, where the hell was I? Oh, yes, Advent. Well, truth is, much of what I've just ranted about can be fairly accurately applied to the period of time that the Gospels describe leading up to Jesus' birth. In a video series on archaeology in the Bible, Jean-Pierre Isbot notes that the tensions between the north and southern halves of Israel, that Galilee was first depopulated and then colonized by settlers from around the Middle East. As a result, it became a place of many foreign peoples, whereas Judea maintained the character of a Jewish nation. Indeed, when the Maccabean revolt liberated Judea, Galilee remained a mostly foreign territory and a rural backwater. It took another 40 years before the region was finally incorporated into the Hasmonean kingdom. But even then, writes Isbot, suspicions ran rife. So much foreign blood has been intermingled with Jewish blood. And then all of these tensions reflected in the gospel. In John's gospel, someone asks, how can the Messiah come from Galilee? He must obviously come from Bethlehem, or the Messiah must be of because the Messiah has to be of the Davidic line. So why would anyone suggest that he would be coming from a small village like Nazareth? The same gospel, it's Nathanael when he hears about Jesus' place of origin, who says, Nazareth? How can anything good come from Nazareth? There were deep social tensions between Judeans who considered themselves a pure strain of Judaism and Galileans who had suffered so much from foreign infiltration. And unlike the peaceful pastoral idea of Galilee that so many take from gospel accounts of Jesus' birth and childhood, Isbot notes that this period is nothing like the peaceful modern, the peaceful period suggested in the Gospels. Modern research has shown that the decade or so in which Jesus grew up was one of the most violent episodes in Galilee, with not one but two major peasant uprisings that devastated the land. In other words, Jesus grew up war-torn. This then is the historical context in which we encounter the narrative of the gestation and birth of Jesus. Which brings me to Nancy Rockwell and a reclamation of the image of Sweet Mary, Mother of Jesus, meek and mild. What a load of hooey. or so Rockwell would have us understand. She notes the subjugation of Mary, the maligning of her as meek, mild, and mindless has been harmful to millions of women over the centuries. She continues, hiding within the wonder of Christmas are 1,000 years of doctrinal female subjugation. Doctrines that, like tinsel, are draped all over the season of Christmas. In the midst of the celebration of wonderful life, these malicious ideas keep women from feeling empowered, invited to be strong, and urged by God to imagine new ways to live. And as Mary of Nazareth did, who mothered God's redemption into the human world. First, there's the angelic visitor with the news, which Rockwell notes Luke's is the only gospel in which Mary's story appears, and in his account there is nothing submissive or immature about Mary. According to Luke, the angel approached her with words of great honor, "Hail Mary, full of grace." Many artists paint the angel kneeling in recognition of the honor given her. The angel is explicit. The honor is for the grace that is distinctly hers. This is a courtship scene. An angel wooing her on bended knee. A suitor, not a constable bringing a decree. Then there's her response to the news. Again, Rockwell, she is startled by the presence of the angels, so were Gideon and Jacob and Jonah and the shepherds in Bethlehem, to name a few. They who, like Mary, question the angel in wonder and doubt and even resistance, they are noted for their reluctance. In fact, that's one of the central themes of the scriptures, both Hebrew and Christian. When God comes calling, most people begin by saying, "You have to be kidding," right? Me? Ain't no way. But why not she? What sort of greeting is this, she asked, and the angel obliged her with an explanation. Later, she challenged the angel, "How shall this happen to me when I have no husband?" God chose, says Rockwell, a spunky woman. Should be noted also that this spunky woman also broke the biblical mode of what women should be doing in the Bible. As Rockwell asserts, many women in biblical stories appear in domestic settings. Sarah in her tent baking cakes, Rachel drawing water from a well, Bathsheba taking a bath, Martha fussing around the kitchen. The woman who lost her coin is sweeping the house. But with Mary, there is no evidence of any domestic work on her part. We never find her cooking or cleaning or washing up. The evidence offered us is her love of adventure. What we find her doing over and over again is traveling in journeys that involve risks and an element of danger. Furthermore, as Rockwell says, none of this jibes with the idea that she is a young teenage girl. Here we're going to get really into it, right? Because this is where it all began. Right? The Greek word that Luke uses for virgin is an unusual one, a very specific word that means she has not yet born a child. Its precise meaning does not indicate sexual innocence. Let me say that again. The Greek word Luke uses for virgin is an unusual one, a very specific word that means she has not yet born a child. Right? Its precise meaning does not indicate sexual innocence. So let's be clear, says Rockwell. The focus is on her uterus, not the state of her hymen. So how does this spunky, risk-taking, danger-managing, mature woman respond to the news of her pregnancy? She makes a political statement. which has been theologized over the centuries to tone down her magnificent prophetic spirit. Again, I quote Rockwell, Mary, wanted by God, according to the angel, for her bold, independent, adventurous spirit, decides to bear a holy child for a bold agenda, to bring down the mighty from their thrones, to scatter the proud in the imagination of their hearts, to fill the hungry with good things, and to send the rich empty away. This is Mary, well-spoken, wise, and gritty. Her soul may have been magnified by the Lord, but her temperament was all about making real the promises of the divine for those who had for far too long experienced violence and subjugation and hunger and dislocation. Seems to me a worthy story to revisit at this moment in our history. And when she gave birth, well, Rockwell ends her reflection thusly: she gives birth in a barn, lies down with animals, and welcomes weathered shepherds in the middle of the night. She is determined, not domestic, free, not foolish, holy, not helpless, strong, not submissive. She beckons women everywhere to speak out for God's justice, which is waiting to be born into this world. Amen? Amen. So why is it that so often we are treated this time of year to the story of Mary as the quintessential expected mother who is simply waiting with faith and patience to arrive with her baby? If Rockwell is right, the very passive and serene image of Mary is the larger universal church's making and a continuation of its subjective mission to keep women in a particular cultural place. Waiting, it turns out, as we have seen in our renewed image of Mary, is anything but simple and passive. It is, for all intent and purposes, a period of preparation. And it is here that I am indebted to the thought and wisdom of Catholic theologian Henri Nouwen. Nouwen first points out that the season of Advent is only one of the number of times during the Christian liturgical year when waiting is central. During the season of Advent, we're waiting for the birth of Jesus, manifested in the world and in our hearts during Epiphany. During Lent, we are waiting in the desert of solitude for new life to be revealed. We wait at Easter for the coming of the Spirit of Pentecost, and after the ascension of Jesus, we're waiting for his coming again. It's all waiting. But then he reflects, how do we wait for the promise to be fulfilled? We wait with patience. But patience doesn't mean passivity. Waiting patiently is not like waiting for the bus to come, the rain to stop, or the sun to rise. It is an active waiting in which we live the present moment to the fullest in order to find there the signs of the one we are waiting for. A waiting person is a patient person. The word patience comes from the Latin verb patior, which means to suffer. Waiting patiently is suffering through the present moment, tasting it to its fullest in the belief that something hidden there will manifest itself. When we know that we are beloved and we are free to live in the house of love, all patience is co-patience, suffering with the divine. Thus, suffering and compassion are the things that give birth to new life. Now look, Social scientists have described the relationship between the experience of war and the movements of civil rights, which is demonstrably the outcome and cry of countries that have experienced suffering. But it doesn't end with suffering. Well, let's be clear. It does for many. And we need to reconcile ourselves to the fact that we often benefit from that suffering. But I continue. There is a relationship between suffering and the creative advancement of human rights. For instance, the book The Fog of War, the Second World War, and the Civil Rights Movement shows how World War II reshaped the struggle for racial justice. Fighting fascism abroad highlighted the hypocrisy of segregation at home, and black soldiers returned demanding a double victory. Victory against tyranny overseas and racism in America. The period saw the NAACP grow in strength, legal challenges to segregation expand, and the groundwork laid for the post-war civil rights movement. Then there's the book Peace and Freedom, the Civil Rights and Anti-War Movements of the 1960s. Do some of you remember that era? If you do, you weren't actually there. No, I'm just saying. Simon Hall, who writes this book, explores how the Vietnam War intersected with civil rights activism, and many black leaders criticized the war as a diversion of resources from domestic justice and as disproportionately harming poor and minority communities. And it would be short-sighted indeed if we were not to acknowledge the role that national suffering took on women and the rise of the women's rights movement in post-Civil War, World War I, World War II, and Vietnam. All of this suggests that our passive understanding of waiting is partial at best, and ultimately, I think, wrong. Anticipation breeds creativity and the longing for something different to emerge from our common trials. So what of our current circumstances might we take of this idea of actively waiting? Like the spunky, risk-taking, danger-managing, mature woman Mary, I would have us consider how we shall envision and promote a different vision of the world, beginning with this Commonwealth. As many of you know, I've been involved with an organization called Worcester Interfaith for years, and I now serve as its vice president. Worcester Interfaith is an organization that builds bridges between congregational and community leaders across religious, socioeconomic, racial, and ethnic boundaries to accomplish much, and has accomplished much, in the areas of jobs and neighborhood improvements and public safety and education and youth, drawing attention to the disproportionate ways in which these affect low-income and minority populations. The organization is an affiliate of the Massachusetts Communities Action Network, or MCAN, which recently launched a campaign to urge the governor of the Commonwealth to take timely and bold executive action to protect the civil rights of all residents by refusing cooperation with federal actions that target immigrant and vulnerable communities. Whether it be by executive order or executive policy or legislative action, this campaign urges the governor to ensure state agencies uphold civil rights, prevent state resources from supporting harmful ICE and National Guard operations, and create a Truth and Accountability Commission to expose abuses. Right now, federal actions, including rollbacks of rights, targeted enforcement, and threats to use federal forces, could harm whole communities and have harmed whole communities. The Commonwealth must respond with courage and clarity. We need a hero in the governor right now. By virtue of such action, we honor the fact that Massachusetts has been, at many times in its history, a beacon of justice and equality and compassion. We uphold the Commonwealth's strong anti-discrimination laws that protect every resident from harm and bias. These are laws that exceed those on the federal level. And those are laws that we ought not capitulate from when the federal agencies show up at our door wanting to debase our communities. To frame this as a patriotic act of noncompliance, this campaign draws on the idea of the Boston Tea Party. I knew we needed to reclaim Tea Party. I was just waiting for that moment. Weren't you? Come on. Really? You know, it got stolen, we want it back, and we're about to take it in grand style. Okay? And so the Tea Party, which is often held up in Massachusetts history as the example of people standing up for an authority that failed to protect their rights, or standing up to an authority that failed to protect their rights, and using the moment as a springboard for a teacup social media campaign that highlights our call to the governor to resist unjust federal actions. In addition, next Sunday, we will be inviting those here who wish to write postcards to do so during coffee hour to add to this effort. We'll also be advertising upcoming events related to this effort, including virtual teach-in on December 11th and virtual gatherings in mid-December. I want us to involve ourselves in this. I want us to put our bodies between those at the federal level that would threaten our neighbors and the neighbors we love. I want us to act out of courage and faith. I want heroes. While we wait for our leaders to end the tyrannical takeover of our immigration system, end the gutting of our social safety net, and bring forward sensible policies to govern our relationship to allies and to restrict access to guns for those who shouldn't have them in the first place, we do so actively, waiting, by participating in efforts to raise voices and empower those we have elected to truly lead. Furthermore, in the new year, we will be working with partners in our surrounding neighborhoods on this side of the city to figure out ways to strengthen the networks that we have here to meet the increasing demand for resources. We're calling them city hubs, because no one in our midst should go hungry. No one in our midst should go without housing, and everyone should feel like they belong. No person is illegal. How's that for a Magnificat? Amen.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're just crossing our path, either new to this congregation or curious about Unitarian Universalism, check out our website, uucworcester.org. You'll find lots of information there about our beliefs, the 8 guiding principles, religious exploration for children and adults, our social action initiatives, and the many groups we offer to help people connect and have fun. And consider joining us, in person or online, on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. We'd love to meet you.
And blessed be.